welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining the penultimate event in our series, Can Wildlife and Agriculture Coexist? And we're looking at this from an East African perspective. So this is a series from Share Screen Africa. I work with Share Screen. I'll be your host, CL, and we bring experts virtually into the classroom for the benefit of university students and people that are interested all over Africa. And we are running this series in collaboration with the African Wildlife Economies Institute. Before we get started, I would just like to say that, well, first of all, we have a wonderful speaker today, Wilson. I'll introduce him in just a second. If you do feel that you have any questions during the event, please feel free to put them in the chat. We can get to those after Wilson's talk. We'll have a Q&A session then. So please do feel free to put anything in the chat that you might want to find out later. And you're very welcome to unmute and ask your questions afterwards, or I can also read them out in the chat. So without further ado, Mr. Wilson Kagoro. Wilson is an experienced conservationist at the Uganda Wildlife Authority, where he's had 16 years experience, and he's currently serving as the warden for community conservation at Murchison Falls National Park. But he's worked extensively across multiple parks, including the Queen Elizabeth Park and the Kibale Park. And this has equipped him with deep insights into wildlife preservation and sustainable coexistence. Wilson is a strong advocate for responsible conservation and community engagement in Uganda's wilderness. So thank you so much for donating your time and expertise to be here, Wilson. We're really happy to have you, and I will hand over to you now.
My pleasure, CL. Yes, my name is Wilson Kagoro, and I work as a warden community conservation, Murchison Falls Conservation Area. I'm glad to meet you here, ladies and gentlemen. Like CL said earlier, that I've worked for the last 16 years in the different parks in Uganda. I started my journey from Queen Elizabeth, then moved to Kibale, and then moved to Semuliki, and I'm right now working in Murchison Falls Conservation Area as a warden community conservation. My work basically involves a lot of conflict management. And I want to say that this has given me a lot of, I've actually had a lot of experiences in managing conflict in many of the parks that I've worked in. And I'm happy to share this experience with you today. The park where I work is one of the parks that is highly visited. And it is one of the parks that is highly sensitive because we have, alongside the wildlife and the tourism that we also have oil activities taking place in the same park. But it is the biggest park in Uganda, and my presentation is going to focus on a number of areas. I'll look at the main tourism activities so that people understand, and then community activities. I look at other community programs that surround the park in Uganda. Then I'll also look at the challenges and the conclusion. Allow me to say Murchison Falls is one of the parks in Uganda that is highly visited among all the other parks that we have, with quite a number of mammal species. Quite a number of mammal species recorded in this park. And all these actually species have attracted quite a number of visitors who have come to visit the park. And I must say that just like the name suggests, Murchison Falls, we also have the wonderful falls in Murchison here. And so people come to see the waterfalls, very powerful waterfalls called Murchison Falls. And in fact, the name Murchison Falls, the park gets its name from those falls because they are the most powerful falls that we have along the Nile River, all the way from Uganda, where the source of the Nile is, up to the Mediterranean Sea. And this is one of the most important areas, I must say, where you can really appreciate nature at its best. When you come, especially in the afternoon, when it has started shining, You can see a permanent rainbow, you can see the water vapor, and you can really feel nature at its best. I therefore want to encourage you, might be in your plan for the next vacation, can plan to come and visit the Murchison Falls. Just to say, to go back to the main activities, there are quite a number of other activities that we have in this park, apart from the waterfalls. People come to do game drives where they see a variety of animals, the giraffes, the elephants, the buffaloes, the cobs, Jackson hartebeests, and quite a number of other mammal species. We have a checklist of over 75 mammal species recorded in the park. And also we have about about 450 bird species. So for birders, this is a place to visit, I must say. And I would also wish to say that apart from the game drives that visitors enjoy to do here in Murchison, they also have, we have also water tourism, marine tourism. We have where the boat, the boat starts from Para as a docking point up to the bottom of the falls. So you can view the falls either from up when you choose to do a nature walk up to the top, or you can view it from when you go straight to the point where the falls are. So for people who are interested in marine tourism, who are interested in boating, this is also a place to visit, I must say. Just going straight to the activities, allow me to say that the park is actually big, and it has both Karuma and Bugungu. And so these three protected areas have one management plan. Karuma and Bugungu are part of this landscape of Murchison Falls, and the park is actually continues and covers this particular area and this landscape, which covers about 5,000 square kilometers. And it is one of the biggest landscapes that we have in Uganda, with a lot of mammal species, a lot of bird species, a lot of reptiles, a lot of amphibians, and a lot of butterflies. For people who are interested in butterfly tourism, this is also a very good place to visit. Allow me to say that going straight to the activities, one of the activities that we do with the local communities is revenue sharing, where we share part of our revenue that we collect from visitors with the neighboring communities. 20% of the money we collect from visitors is shared with the neighboring communities. And the objectives of revenue sharing is that we want to build a strong relationship with the local communities and the local governments, and also to ensure that sustainable management of the resources in and around the protected area is actually taken into consideration by the communities, but also to enable the people to obtain the benefits derived from the existence of this protected area, so that they don't look at these parks as islands, but they look at them as something that adds value to their lives, but also improves on the economy of the country. The other objective is that it contributes to the improvement of their welfare, because since we started this program of revenue sharing in 2004, I must say we have released quite a lot of money to the neighboring communities to a tune of about 22 billion Uganda shillings. And that, I think, can be translated in dollars, because each dollar is about 3,700 Uganda shillings. But so a lot of money has been remitted to the neighboring communities to support them in infrastructure projects, to support them in not only infrastructure, but also in livelihood improvement projects and projects which are aimed at human wildlife conflict reduction. Yes. So these are some of the pictures of some of the projects that have been supported under the revenue sharing program. Infrastructure projects, they actually, in the far background, you can see some cultural dance and drama. And these are basically communities who advocated that they want to have part of their culture promoted. And when the money was coming, we said, we have this fund that can support you in promoting your culture, because it adds value on the tourism. And so these are Porongo communities in Moya district in northern Uganda. And so they are performing. So we did for them a cultural center, which is fully functional. And we have been actually even sending them some little money to actually maintain this facility because the tourism that we do sometimes is seasonal. In the low seasons, when there are no visitors who pass by to say hello and to enjoy the music, dance, and drama from this particular group, they may not have enough funds. So we send some little money to sustain the project and sustain the infrastructure. Also, you might have seen quite a number of classroom blocks. Then the pit latrines that are constructed in some of the schools in Agung, still in the north of Murchison, in Moya district in northern Uganda, north of the Nile. Some of these are some of the projects. This is just one, two examples that I could have cited, but there are a number of projects that have been supported under the revenue sharing program. We have also supported, by the way, trench digging. Trench digging these are ditches. I think at a later time, you'll see some of the pictures of the trench which have been dug out of revenue sharing money. We have also done, but all these are done in order to minimize on human wildlife conflicts. We have a lot of arable land around the park, and this land, in most cases, communities are interested in growing crops that are palatable to the animals because that's where they derive their livelihood. And so it becomes a challenge to force them to plant something else. But however, in our engagements with the communities around the park, we have tried as much as possible to engage these communities, to tell them about crops that are unpalatable, crops like simsim, like sunflower, like garlic, like chili, red chili, I'm meaning red chili. Some of these, I must say, are crops that are very, very unpalatable, but they're high value crops. So one of the other things that we do as we engage with communities and as we look at interventions that are aimed at human wildlife conflict reduction is that we encourage them to grow crops that are unpalatable to the animals so that they can be able to harvest whatever they grow and live happy lives other than looking at the park as a problem to them. Maybe I will request CL to take me to another slide. And so together, so there are a number of interventions that we have done that are aimed at human wildlife conflict reduction around Murchison Falls. Apart from the trenches, of late we have embarked on electric fence, and I must say fences have proved to be very effective, almost 95% effective. And these are solar-powered fences. Apparently, we have a distance of about 53 kilometers of electric fence constructed around the park. And the fence is aimed at minimizing human wildlife conflicts. And it is a solar-powered fence. And most of the people that we use in the neighboring communities are people who have lived in these communities so that they can own the fence. So they have been recruited. Some of them learn on job through apprenticeship. You can see in the picture of the challenge that we have, where we have elephants, where we have conflict between wildlife and human beings that result in two deaths of some of the animals. You can see a chimpanzee carrying a pawpaw in the background. You can see an elephant that had been killed because communities were confronting it because it had invaded their crops. You can also see two individual elephants, I suspect a mother and a baby, in a garden of maize, which is flourishing in the background. These conflicts are things that we have been doing, that we have been handling on a day-to-day basis. And so as a way of preventing them to have coexistence is that we have tried those several interventions that are aimed at minimizing that conflict that exists between the park and the community that comes as a result of animals straying out of the park to the neighboring communities. Murchison Falls has a big boundary parameter of about 433 kilometers, but out of those, we have so far done 53. This financial year that ends next year in June, we hope to do about 50 more kilometers so that we can have over 100 kilometers done under electric fence construction. But of course, we will do it in a phased manner until such a time when we have the entire park covered with a fence so that we can be able to prevent these animals from having a direct conflict with the neighboring communities, especially those communities that are neighboring the park. in this particular area, in the 6 districts of Nwoya, Oyam, Kiriandongo, Masindi, Bulisa, and Pakwach. This problem is more pronounced in the districts of Nwoya, Oyam, Kiriandongo, Masindi, and partly Bulisa. Pakwach, we have a few cases of hippos. Maybe we can move to the next slide. Because my PC is not responding, I don't know why. CL, if you don't mind, you can move me to another slide. So a number of interventions have been done around this, this park, and these interventions are aimed at minimizing that conflict that normally occurs as a result of animals straying out of the park. So we've had several elephants, hippos, buffaloes, chimpanzees, crocodiles endangering people's lives. But thanks be to God now that government has approved a compensation plan. So for people who have lost crops of late, we have since 2002, I must say that we had a new law. A new law takes care of compensation for victims and for people who have lost their property in terms of crops, people who have lost their livestock, people who have lost their lives or whose lives have been threatened. Government has put in place a law that allows compensation of those individuals and those claimants. So we also have had a few cats that stray out of the park, especially leopards, jackals, civets, lions, and so they also pose a threat to the neighboring communities, especially on their domestic animals. And so when they attack the animals and kill the animals, that brings a big conflict. I must say this has generally been addressed because we have encouraged the communities to also make kraals, strong kraals. Wherever we have communities, especially the pastoral communities around the park, we encourage them to make strong kraals so that these animals cannot be able to jump in and attack their domestic animals and even put their lives in danger. We've also had issues to do with baboons, monkeys, bush pigs, although they have been declared vermins actually even in the old Act of 2001, even in the new Act of Uganda Wildlife Authority Act 2019. Sorry, that is not 2029, it is 2019. This new act recognizes vermins as one of the challenges that we have. And these vermins are allowed to be killed if they're outside the park. But if they go inside the park, they are protected species, I must say. And so our new law compels government to compensate people who have lost crops, especially that have been invaded by baboons. Baboons are among the animals that are compensatable. Not all animals are compensatable. There are few that are compensatable, and actually baboon, elephant, crocodile, chimpanzee, buffalo, hippo. We have mountain gorillas, which are in southwestern part of Uganda, in Windi and Mugahinga, and all these are some of the compensatable animals. But we also have animals that are not compensatable. Not all the animals mentioned here are compensatable. Forms of human-wildlife conflict around Murchison Falls is crop riding or crop destruction. And I must say, and of course, we have a few cases of livestock predation, and then also a few cases of human death and injury. Next slide. I must also say that some of the observations I wish to make among these human wildlife conflict issues is that we have annual reports which are being compiled at a time. So if you are probably maybe a master's or PhD student who wishes to do research, Murchison Falls is one of the parks you can visit. We have these records so long as you get a research permit from our Uganda Wildlife Authority headquarters in Kampala. You can be able to do research on human wildlife conflict management, and we can avail to you those records for purposes of publication because that information is available. So we've been collecting data for the last 9 years, and I must say that at least for the last 6 years I've been around Murchison Falls. We have been collecting data on human wildlife conflict. I must say that we have also tried as much as possible to do a number of things. Actually this year we had a census carried out in Uganda, but this census was aimed at helping us get a figure of how many communities are neighboring the park And I hope in the next probably maybe 2 months before, around November, the records are already out. But when we declare the revenue sharing that I talked about as part of the money that we collect from visitors, but it is plowed back into the communities who are neighboring the park by establishing and doing projects that are aimed at human wildlife conflict reduction. I must say that we want to determine we can do that by using these figures, the population figures. We've had a lot of engagements with communities, and I must say that we have engaged quite a number of communities. I don't work alone. I work with community conservation rangers under my department, and we're able to do a lot of awareness. We're able to identify the threats, and we're able to identify on the solution on how we can identify these threats. Some of these, I must say, we had quite a number of actually areas that have already been fenced. We have about 78 kilometers of trench network. Trenches, these are ditches. They're 2 feet wide and 2 feet deep. I must say these trenches in the past had helped us minimize on human wildlife conflicts, but we had also issues where we had boggy areas, swampy areas, where these trenches could not work, or even actually areas that are rocky. We find it very hard to either dig through the rocks or dig through the waterlogged area. And so these trenches had their own weaknesses. And that's why now management is actually focusing now on electric fence construction. We have also been doing scare shooting, where these are just instant. Whenever we are called upon, we quickly respond with our human wildlife conflicts team that is able to respond to cases of elephants, especially, and buffaloes going out. Then we are able to scare shoot them and bring them back into the park. We have also encouraged the communities to grow crops that are unpalatable, like I had mentioned earlier. These are the crops. But we have also been able to recruit and engage scouts. These are volunteers from the neighboring communities. And these scouts have been very instrumental because we cannot be everywhere. As I said earlier, Murchison Falls covers a big distance of about 433 kilometers. This is quite a big distance compared to the manpower we have. I must say that some of these are some of the samples of the fence, some of the samples of the area that we have fenced. You can continue quickly because my time is fast spent. Some of these are in areas that are a bit waterlogged. These are some of the examples of how the fence looks like. Yeah, you can proceed. The other interventions I must say that we have encouraged the communities to really grow crops that are not palatable to the animals. We also have beehive fences around the park, because bees do not help only in preventing human wildlife conflicts. These help in helping the community get income generating activity that can sustain them. And I must say that this supplements on the agriculture and the farming that they do around the park, so that we can have coexistence. Some of the animals that are proved to be a threat to the communities, like the lions and leopards and crocodiles, some of them that are found in the community are captured and translocated into the park, where there are no neighboring communities whom they can disturb. We have also invested in community-based tourism, call it ecotourism, and these are helping communities have alternatives outside agriculture, practicing agriculture around the park. We have also trained as many scouts as possible. Yes, some of these are crocodiles that have been captured. Also in the background on the left-hand side, you can see some of the scouts whom we train and equip. These are purely volunteers, but I think it is important that we have people who out there who can support the scouts' work, because the scouts do a lot of work alongside the rangers to scare away the animals, but we train them on the basic behavior on how to understand the behavior of some of these animals, especially elephants, buffaloes, and how they can be able to chase them back into the park. We can proceed. We also have programs that are aimed at bringing communities closer to us. We have about 18 memorandums of understanding for resource access, to allow communities access resources from the park in the different areas around the park where there is no much tourism, where there is no much research work and administration. And but we first of all establish the stock. If we are talking about maybe found. Is it there? We first of all carry out an inventory to establish the stock. And once the stock is there and it is there in plenty and the general management plan allows that, we do allow communities to access resources from the park as one of the other programs. We do engage communities. Those are engagement meetings. You can proceed to save time. So one of the things we have done is to ensure that we engage all the different stakeholders, having identified some of the threats that we have and some of the opportunities. We also identify the stakeholders. There are a number of stakeholders, teaching institutions, academia. We have a lot of research topics that we can handle at the conservation area level. And we hope by sharing these research topics, we can have people out there who wish to do research to come and do research here. We also have religious institutions that we have partnered with to continue with the engagement with the neighboring communities so that we can bring on board everybody. We have the media team, call it maybe the fourth estate. Those have helped us disseminate some of the information. Whenever we are holding meetings, whenever we have radio talk shows, we can be able to circulate this through the media, through social media, and through the main media, TV, television, and also the radio stations. Say that we also have NGOs and other civil society organizations that we have been able to work with to continue advocacy, and also we have partnered with in minimizing human wildlife conflicts. But also we have built the capacity of our own staff and the communities to handle some of these on a case-by-case basis. Allow me to say that Uganda Wildlife Authority, UWA, has developed a human wildlife conflict unit on each and every park, and hopefully with this kind of human wildlife conflict units, we'll be able to handle issues of human wildlife conflict on a case-by-case basis and swiftly. Yes, the next slide as we finish. Allow me say that we've got to do a lot of awareness through the outreach programs to garner the support of the neighboring communities. We have discounted rates for schools that visit us, and even for researchers, by the way. If you are coming here as a researcher, you don't pay like any other visitor. So we give discounted rates for Ugandans and for people within East Africa community who visit these parks. They pay really very little money, less than $1 to access the park, and the accommodation is even less than $1. These are basically schools, and this is to give them opportunity to come and appreciate what we are doing so that they can be able to pass on this message to their parents, to their teachers, and all the Ugandans, all East Africans. And the last slide, maybe, the last slides. As I finish, allow me to say these are some of the radio talk shows that we do on radios, local radio stations in a language that is understood by everybody. We're able to relay this information. Allow me to say that we do also have, after doing all these activities, we have also the tourism aspect. We do encourage people out there to come and do tourism activities, marine tourism. You can see the boats. If you want to do camping, you can do. If you want to do game drives, if you want to do biking, cycling, all these activities that we have here. And one can do these activities. And by doing this, you're supporting directly the mine economy, where people are no longer depending on only agriculture, but rather they are benefiting from tourism as a some of these also have sport fishing as an activity. It is an annual activity. We also have trenches. This sport fishing, maybe I can talk slightly about sport fishing because I did not talk in detail. It is an annual activity. We do it once, and the winning team, whoever catches the big fish, wins the competition. And it is catch and released. You don't catch and eat or feast on that. You catch the fish, you wait quickly, then you throw it back into the water. We have quite a number of actually tourism enthusiasts and other well-wishers who have been participating in this annual activity. It normally happens around March and May, between March and May every year. But even now, if anybody is interested in sport fishing as an activity, if you want to come individually, you pay only $50 to do that per day, per 24 hours in order to participate in this sport fishing. And usually the area where we do this is a no fishing area. So there's plenty of fish, and I can assure you it is an experience worth talking about. Yes, next. I must say as I finish, because my time is fast spent, These are trenches, these are ditches that are dug to prevent the elephants from crossing over from the park to the community. We have also beehive fences that have been done where the scouts had talked about it. Proceed. We also have quite a number of people whom we have trained among our staff to capture snakes and reptiles. You can see this African rock python was captured and rescued from the community and released into the park. Also on the right-hand side, you could have seen a gentleman carrying and picking a snake. Where he was called, he was not in PPEs, but he was quickly called and he had a few gadgets, but you can see he's trying to save a snake from some of the areas where we have developments. Yes, proceed as we finish. Yes, some of these are challenges that we have, ladies and gentlemen. Poaching, which is normally done by communities around the park, and not all the communities, a few individuals who have their ill motives been involved in poaching. It is actually among the threats that we have. Tracks number one among the threats, followed by human-wildlife conflict. Also, we have people who are involved in possession and trading of wildlife products illegally. We have illegal grazing, charcoal burning, encroachment, and some bit of timber logging and fire. Setting up fire in areas where it is not supposed to be set up, and then also road kills because of the high roads which are transiting through the park. Yes, as we finish. Another, yes. So in doing, we have supported quite a number of these communities around the park as a way of making them comfortable to live in harmony with the park. And we have had a World Bank project called Investment in Forests and Protected Area for Climate Smart Development. This has supported quite a number of people. Yes, some of these are snares that have been captured from poachers. These are wheel traps. We have snares, we have wheel traps, and these have been captured when our rangers are doing patrol. And we have many departments, but we all do one thing at a time. Me, I'm involved in awareness, in engaging with communities. Another team is involved in law enforcement. And so we are able to have our efforts done to consolidate on some of the threats that we have and minimize them. So these are snares in our store here. We have a snare store, and these are supposed to be recycled. Some of these are guns capable of killing. Although our law doesn't allow killing, we apprehend, take to court, and the suspect is prosecuted. And some of these are some of the gadgets that have been recovered from poachers. Some of them are armed. When we actually encounter such, you sometimes find it that sometimes we may lose staff under such circumstances, especially when they are confronted by armed poachers. Although we are also armed, we tend to use less force in order to avoid accidents and people killing each other. So, but of course, our law doesn't allow shooting at a poacher. But of course, if you're in the wild and somebody shoots at you, I must say that, of course, you have to make a scare shoot so that somebody is able to give you space so that you don't cause any problem, or you can be able to actually use the helicopter and they probably follow up with that poacher until this poacher is apprehended. Some of these are the concealment of some of the wildlife products. This is shea butter, but it is just ivory, packed ivory in drums, as you might see. And so they seal it and they just put a different thing altogether, yet there's something. So we have a strong actually team at the airport and all the borders. Customs, we work with immigration and customs to ensure that some of these wildlife products are apprehended. Yes, next. As we finish. Some of these that is some of the timber that has been captured. Then we also have vehicles that transport wild meat, or maybe call it bush meat. And then we've got a lot of we work with other security forces to intercept them at the roadblocks, and we can be able to recover. We have sniffer dogs, we also have tracking dogs, and we can be able to sniff. These dogs can be able to sniff, and we can be able to detect any wildlife product on board. And that's why we're able to capture all these. The next presentation, also because of the poaching that we have, some people set wires, and some of the wires are able to injure wildlife. You can see that is the Rothschild giraffe. that has been injured, and you can see a lot of actually illegal fishing activities done in wrong places, which are usually supposed to be breeding areas. So we have been able to rescue all these animals that have been snared, and also we have been able to apprehend those who have been involved in illegal fishing in areas which are known as breeding zones for fishing. Yes, some of these are charcoal bugs, and as actually as we move forward, allow me to say that we have got to invest a lot of money in especially minimizing all these conflicts I've talked about. We've got to work with other stakeholders, and when we do that, we are able to minimize on human wildlife conflicts, also some of the threats of poaching, and allow me to say that we can be able to manage all these challenges that we're talking about with the support of other stakeholders, including the academia, including the sister forces in security, and also trying several human wildlife conflict interventions. We are able to minimize on human wildlife conflicts, and this will actually help us live in harmony with the agriculture, with the people who are interested in farming and agriculture in the neighboring communities, and so that we can have coexistence. Going forward is that we need to adaptive management approach to protected area management is the way to go, where we can be able to see what has worked and how effective it has worked, and we can be able to modify and adjust accordingly, looking at a different management approach. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Wilson. That was really, really fantastic. Fascinating to learn more about the innovative ways that you're using to combat this problem, to work with communities. It's really, really great to see. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And apologies to everyone, as always, for the technical issue. I have some questions in the chat here. Okay, so I'm going to go straight in. We've got a question here from Vanuel Nlea. Are there any strategies that integrate technologies in curbing human and wildlife conflict in Uganda?
Can I respond to this quickly?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, we have actually we are using drones to actually minimize on human wildlife conflict. In areas of Wankwa, north of Murchison Falls in Waya district, we have experimented that, and it has worked well, where we're using drones to chase elephants. A herd of elephants, and when we use a drone, but this may not apply because some of the drones we have, usually the crop raiding happens at night, and some of the drones we have are not, we cannot use them during the night. They are not, we cannot be able to monitor the movement of elephants at night. And so we have decided also to collar some of these elephants, especially the dominant female. We have a few individuals that have been collared so that when they go out, we can be able to monitor on our Earth Ranger software at our base. And so by doing that, we are using technology to minimize on human wildlife conflict that we have. But also we are thinking of using actually on these areas where we're doing a fence. We are not doing a fence everywhere. There are migratory corridors, which we are not definitely going to fence. These will remain active, but we hope to use cameras, and we can be able to monitor wildlife movement. If it is done outside the park, then we're going to have some fly cams for rangers who are going to be based there. So that they move with these elephants and did not cause a huge, considerable damage to the crops that are from the neighboring communities. And I think the cameras will help us, the drones will help us, but also will collar some of these elephants, especially the dominant females, so that we can be able to monitor their movements. And by doing this, I hope technology will take us to another level.
Great, thank you, Wilson, and thank you very much for that great question. We have another question in the chat from Emmanuel Ngumbi from Kenya. He says, a great presentation, though I joined halfway, and he would like to know more about how the Uganda Wildlife Authority is promoting adaptive or integrative wildlife management as a tool for promoting positive human-wildlife interactions.
A very good question. Very good question, I must say. My brother from Kenya. Yes, what Uganda Wildlife Authority is doing in using adaptive management, I must say that adaptive management is a flexible learning approach to wildlife management. And so Uganda Wildlife Authority has tried several interventions, and we are not about to stop doing these interventions. Definitely, we'll identify the interventions that are more practical and more efficient in minimizing the damages. And so we've learned over time. Like, for example, we started with trenches that are, these are ditches around the park. But now we have embarked on electric fence. And that way we are trying to definitely use the adaptive, the experience of learning. What has worked? How effective are these interventions over time? And what else can we do to actually adapt to the new technology, to the new means of minimizing the conflicts that we have that exist between the park and the community? So not only in human wildlife conflict management, but also in fire regimes, we have got a lot of actually fire interventions. We do have actually right now, we have a firefighting truck, which we did not have before. But this is almost adaptive management, because we in the past we used to use manual labor where you organize a few scouts and a few communities to fight fire. But gone are the days that would even risk them more. So now we're using a fire truck to minimize on these fire outbreaks. Not only in fire outbreak, talk about poaching. We used to actually have patrols done, but patrols, you cannot do patrols alone. We have now drones. Drones can do better for you, much better work for you than the normal human being patrolling one area from one area to another. Although patrols are still very effective and they are good, especially for ensnaring some of the animals that would have lost due to poaching, I must say that we are going to continue patrolling, but we have adapted and we have tried to use these drones and technology to monitor the movement of animals and even the poachers' entrance, and even cameras. Now we have spy cameras and we can be able to detect, especially in areas where we have a lot of snares. We know that they can sneak in any time. So we have spy cameras and we can tell that these poachers have entered at such a time. So a swift group has, a patrol group has to go and be deployed and intercept. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much, Wilson. And then we also have another question in the chat from Sandy Swart. She's asking, could you please expand on the anti-poaching dogs?
Very good question. Thank you so much, Sandy. Allow me say that.
Hi, Sandy.
Yes, allow me say that. Yes, anti-poaching dogs. We have sniffer dogs. We also have tracking dogs. Tracking dogs help us track the movement of poachers inside the park. And so we are able to follow up and detect where a poacher has passed using those tracking dogs. But sniffer dogs, we use them in areas where we have limited action, where we have control gates. They are able to run around if it is a vehicle and they detect something, they quickly make a signal. And we have these around areas of the checkpoints. We work with our other sister forces, Uganda Revenue Authority. We work with customs, we work with immigration officers. So at the border points, especially some of the wildlife products are got from other countries and they just use it through Uganda as a transit route. So we are able to get these, and the sniffer dogs can be able to detect that. We have actually a unit in Karuma. Karuma is just along the Nile. I think, yeah, when you're crossing, if you have been to Uganda and you understand the map of Uganda, if you can actually, we have a unit in Karuma, but also we have several units, one at the border in Busia, but we also have the same actually at the airport at Entebbe. So we are able to see these dogs are able to detect wildlife products, and once they detect them, we're able to apprehend the suspects.
Great, thank you. And thank you for that great question, Sandy. It was nice to see you on the screen just then. I see a couple of questions in the chat from Prosper Munisi, and I'm wondering, Prosper, if you would like to unmute and ask your question directly.
Yeah, I just want to ask, like, how much is Uganda using the CBRM concept, maybe? How much is Uganda engaging community in conservation? And maybe in our case in Tanzania, we have seen like the community engagement in conservation increases also their tolerance in HWC. How much is it in Uganda?
Yeah, very good question, Prosper. Allow me to say that, yeah, we do engage communities in meetings. We organize meetings, and these meetings are done on a weekly basis. I have at least some 2 days out to go and engage with communities. And a team of other staff also have to do the same. And so we do engage communities in meetings where we can have their views taken care of. And of course, if they have any questions concerning the park, we are able to respond to them. But allow me to say also that we have gone an extra mile to do radio talk shows. Those radio talk shows have a bigger coverage. I know there are quite a number of radio stations around, so you find which one is which, but you find the most popular ones. And so you engage the media people to pass on the information that you want, especially if you want to minimize on human wildlife conflict and even poaching itself. So we do the media, we do engage the media, and of course, sometimes we do radio, actually, we do some radio missions. So maybe we look for maybe very good people who can, who have very good oratory skills in the local language, and they can be able to translate this message and pass it over to the other audience in a language that is understandable by everybody in that particular area, so that they stop poaching. And so that way we are able to engage with communities. But of course, not forgetting the fact that we also do programs that are aimed at bringing communities closer to us through our several programs. I talked about revenue sharing. We have resource access. Revenue sharing, we share part of the revenue we collect from visitors with the neighboring communities. Resource access, we share some of the resources inside the protected area with the neighboring communities. Some of the parks in Uganda, I'll give you an example, Prosper. Like Windy, like Kibale, these were formerly forest parks, but people owned these parks. And gone are the days where they would say, enter the park at your own risk. People used to get mushrooms from these parks. People used to get even actually fruits and even medicinal plants from these parks. So they owned them. So Machazi Uganda Wildlife Authority inherited them from the forest department, but they have actually owned these parks. And in fact, if you go to Windy and you touch any gorilla, a community will arrest you before even a staff comes, or even a police officer or any other security personnel comes. The communities themselves will arrest you because they have known the importance of this park and this forest to them. So this ownership and our programs are aimed at bringing these communities on board. And so we do engage them, yes, in meetings, but also we do radio talk shows where we also entertain questions, good or bad, but we do also allow them get resources from the park so that they can own the park. I don't know whether I've answered your question very well on combating poaching and maybe increasing tolerance on human wildlife conflict. Thank you, Prosper.
Great, thank you. Prosper says thank you very much in the chat. Yeah, very great question, and great as well, Wilson, to hear how much work you're doing to ensure that the community is engaged and involved with these national parks. It's really fantastic. I think we might have time for one more question. I noticed that Emmanuel also had another question in the chat, and Emmanuel, I'd like to invite you to also unmute and ask your question. Emmanuel, are you there?
How are you?
Good. It's great to have you with us, Emmanuel.
Sure, I've actually been missing all the talks, but at least today I joined because I'm off duty.
Great.
Just wanted to get clarification about my question, though I put it on the chat about the infrastructure. I know we're having a big challenge in Kenya because of the mega projects and also the lateral development, especially with the SGR, the railway line, and the power lines again. How is Uganda actually pro planning for this so that they are not caught unawares like the way it happened in Kenya?
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for that very important question. Yes, we also have developments here, and a lot of infrastructure development. We have a good road transiting through Murchison Falls National Park, I must say, and this has created a lot of challenges to us, especially in terms of the road kills. But what we have done is that we have done speed humps. For every after 300 meters, you find there's a speed hump. So that helps us in minimizing on speeding vehicles and motorists who are not disciplined on the road. But also we have spot checks. We have a traffic department, our own staff being involved in actually working with police in order to apprehend speeding vehicles and finding them on spot. If you're found over speeding, you're given a receipt. We also have cameras on that highway. Just to give you, just as a actually as one of the case examples, I must say that we have cameras along the road, the main road, and these cameras, if you're over speeding, you find a receipt on the gate, and then you are supposed to pay. So by doing that, I think we have been able to minimize on especially the wildlife road kills, but also the other mega infrastructure. We have a lot of oil activities in Murchison Falls. But this particular area where we have oil activities, of course, tourism is somehow, of course, it is affected. I cannot say it is not affected, but what we do is that we create alternative routes. Areas actually which are supposed to be for oil development, they do the oil, we are now at the production, almost at the production level. They have their oil wells inside the park, but we don't allow these people to sleep in the park. The camps are outside the park. So thousands of people are sleeping outside. They come do the work during the day, and at 5 or 6, they return back to the camps, which are outside the park, so that we reduce on the ecological footprint inside the park. And that way we're able to minimize some of the challenges that we anticipate to have, especially that come as a result of these developments, these mega projects.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Wilson. That is the hour now, so we will end the session. But I wanted to say a massive thank you to everyone for joining. Wonderful audience today, asking some really great questions. So that was really fantastic. Thank you so much. And also, of course, thank you so much to our wonderful speaker today, Mr. Kagoro. We really appreciate you giving up your time and your expertise to join us here today. A recording of this video will be available in about a week's time for those that missed it or would like to catch up. There were also some interesting comments in the chat there. So Wilson, we will share those with you afterwards. As much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wilson.